Hello, welcome. Welcome. This is the global community for adults who are healing CPTSD from repeated relational trauma, usually beginning in childhood. We talk a lot about healing childhood trauma on this channel. We've all been showing up here together for almost 10 years, once a week, and we check in with one another. And we share what's been working for us in our healing journey and what hasn't been working for us. So if you're new to this channel, we're so grateful to meet you. And if you are able to be here for our time together, for our live open discussions, we have those once a week on Mondays at 7 p.m. Eastern. And it would be great to warmly welcome you into our community. Regardless of your presence here with us during our live open discussions, your presence in our community is felt and valued, and we're so glad that you're here. And my deepest hope is that this replay would be something that you find helpful and supportive, or at the very least interesting for your healing journey. So what we've been doing here on Monday nights for a couple years now, we've been doing sort of a co-regulation, a nervous system regulation. So we have a meditation with Morgan Harper Nichols. Her artwork is what you see up on the screen. We have some guided breath work where we do some breath work together, some deep breathing. And these are all simply invitations. There's no mandate for you to spend time here with us that you have to participate in the things that we are doing. But we do warmly welcome you and invite you to be here with us. In addition to our breath work and our meditation with Morgan Harper Nichols, we also have a compassionate healing strategy written by Dr. Ariel Schwartz. And we also have a Loving the Self affirmation written by Lisa A. Romano. And last week, I think it was last week or maybe it was the week before, I also brought to you a quote. We started our time off with a quote from an author by the name of Young Pueblo. And this is from his book titled The Way Forward. And this quote, in this quote, he talks a lot about how he used to view some of the struggles that he had gone through as a hindrance. And the quote ends with a declaration of him being ready to do the work, ready to respond. And I thought that would be rather fitting because tonight, this week's theme, usually we have a theme every week. So tonight or this week's theme is creating room for our emotions. We're going to talk about creating room for our emotions. I can almost feel the collective eye roll in the virtual room here because a lot of people don't want to talk about their emotions. They're like, I'm so done talking about my emotions. Can we just move on to something else, please? And at the same time, when we create room for our emotions and we hold a space for that is living in us, when we hold that space with warmth and compassion, and when we fully acknowledge what it is that's coming up for us in our lived experience, and we validate all of those feelings that we're having in the body, and we show up in a way where there isn't an annoyance, a feeling of being annoyed, but rather a gentle holding of space and validation of where we are at, and an acknowledgement for just the reality of what's brought us here, something shifts. Something in the body actually shifts. It's a physiological shift. So that's my invitation for you this week, among everything else that we're going to be going through tonight. We might run a little bit long tonight, maybe like to the top of the hour. because the compassionate healing strategy that Dr. Ariel Schwartz is sharing with us, it goes in depth into emotional intelligence and being able to recognize our emotions and what they might feel like in the body. So I'm excited for all of that. But before we get started and before we do our breath work together and focus on co-regulation, I just want to pause and I want to acknowledge and warmly welcome those who are here for our time together. A very warm welcome to you, John Harvey. So good to see you as always. A very warm welcome to you, Kate and Jeffrey Sherman and Emily and Mandy J and Lil J. Oh, I'm so glad to see you all. A very warm welcome to you, this be me. A very warm welcome to you, Sarah. And hello to you, Ninja Taco. It's so good to see you, Recovery Buddy. Thank you so much again for what you sent me. Yes, this be me. You are here. I said a warm welcome to you. I'm really glad to see you. Did you not hear me when I welcomed you earlier? I'm so glad to see you. Oh, it's great to be here with you all. I'm waving back at you. I'm so grateful to be here. It has been a very, very full week. I am dog momming all over the place. Can I just tell you that being a dog mom of a dog that is somewhere between the ages of 11 and 13, deaf, blind in one eye, and has glaucoma in the other, and he's arthritic. Can I just tell you that it's a lot going on? It's absolutely a lot going on, but I wouldn't have it any other way. His name is Maui, and he is so precious. And I have been giving him medicine for an ear infection. And, we're doing the best we can. We're doing the best we can. Hello to you, AJ. Great to have you with us. So thank you all so much for your warmth and your kindness and for checking in. And we're going to start now. We are going to start with a quote, and then we are going to do some breath work together. We're going to focus on nervous system regulation. Two of the greatest ways that we can regulate our nervous system is by co-regulating with other mammalian nervous systems, which is what we are doing here in this room. There are 14 of us, 15 of us if you count me, all together in this room. And we are all going to be co-regulating together. And one of the second best ways for us to regulate our nervous system is through breath work. So there we go. We're doing two of the very best ways we can practice regulation. It's so very helpful for so many of us. And as a bonus, Dr. Ariel Schwartz is it Ariel or Ariel? I believe it's Ariel. I've been mispronouncing it. Dr. Ariel, she's beginning a 3-week series on managing our emotional dysregulation. So we're all sort of on the same page here. We have a working theme going. So before we do our breath work, I want to share this quote by Young Pueblo. And he says, now mind you, when I read you these quotes, I don't know his background. We're not talking specifically to trauma survivors. This is simply a book that I found that I thought would be very interesting and beautiful. And so if this doesn't land for you, just skip it. Take the best and leave the rest. But he's talking about his past and how he felt that it was a hindrance. And by the end of the quote, he is declaring that he is ready to respond. So let's see what he has to say. He says, I used to see my past as a hindrance. All of the mistakes I made, all of the failed relationships, all of the pain I was given that I never wanted to carry. At first, I wanted to forget these memories and to scratch them out of the book of my life. But now I see, even though my story started heavy, it did not stop me from finding my inner light. My sadness has been a motivator, and my pain became a teacher. If we listen closely to our hurt, it may say, there is a better way than this, and all we have to do is respond. Show me I am ready. I love that. I don't know about you all, but I am ready. I am ready to move forward. I am ready for all of the things I've been through to be causing me present day frustrations and pain. I am ready. And at the same time, I'm exhausted. How about you all? Seriously. So let us begin with some breath work. And if you hear a little click, click, click on the floor, it just means that Maui woke up and that he's walking around trying to sniff and find me because he's blind. But he can definitely sense. He knows where I'm at. I think he can see shadows because if I turn the light on and I move, then he turns his face toward me like my shadow by the light. So I will hope that it will stay peaceful and beautiful and calming like it is right now. But if we have little baby Maui wake up, then I may have to cut our time short because it means that he probably would need to go outside. So, the author of the quote, thank you so much, Emily. The author is Young Pueblo, Y-U-N-G Pueblo, Pueblo, Young Pueblo. And the quote was from his book, The Way Forward. Yeah, I'm exhausted too, Kate. I really am. Yes. Last week was extremely long, for sure. So we are going to do some breath work. I want to invite you to get very, very comfortable. If you'd like a pillow to support your posture, I'm going to grab a sip of water right now. And here we go. We're going to do our 4-7-8 breath together. We're going to breathe in together for 4 counts. We're going to hold or pause for 7 counts. And then we will breathe out for 8 counts. And we will do that 4 times. I'll count us in on our first breath and our 4th breath. And on our 2nd and 3rd breath, we will be on our own. Okay? Let us begin in 3, 2, 1. Breathe in. 3, 2, 1. Pause. 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Breathe out. 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. On your own now. again. Last time together now. In 3, 2, 1. Inhale. 3, 2, 1. Pause. 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Exhale. 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Beautiful. Well done. That extended exhale is it's helpful for the activation of our parasympathetic nervous system, which is also often referred to as our rest and digest. So when we are in our sympathetic nervous system, that's usually when our fight or flight response is activated. And the goal of that extended exhale is for our brain and our body to talk to one another and communicate, letting us know that we're safe, so that we can hopefully get a nice big yawn. Is John Harvey here? I said hello to him earlier, but I haven't seen him in the last few minutes. How are you doing, John Harvey? I thought the reason I'm asking is because someone sent me a chocolate cake meme, and so of course I thought of you. I just want to check in with you all if you were able to get a nice big yawn. This is for you. I know it's not chocolate cake, but someone had sent me, it was this GIF of a chocolate cake or something, and I was like, oh, I need to remember to tell John Harvey about that on Monday. So we're going to, probably going to go a little long, like we did last week, or maybe it was the week before. So Dr. Ariel is, she's talking with us. She's sharing some vignettes from some clients and talking with us about our different emotions and how they show up in the body. And she's helping us to expand our window of tolerance. That window of tolerance is what Dr. Dan Siegel calls like our optimum zone, or maybe Peter Levine calls it our optimum zone, or Dr. Stephen Porges, but I believe Dr. Dan Siegel calls it our window of tolerance. And it's like our range of stress that a person can manage without getting too overwhelmed. And so we're going to talk about that and how we can expand our window of tolerance so that I don't know about you, but this whole emotional dysregulation thing, it used to come up for me a lot, like when I first started my healing journey, or this last wave of my healing journey, which was, probably somewhere right around like 2005, 2006 is when this last sort of, this last leg of my healing journey began. And it actually was, I had gotten in a car accident, and they did like a brain scan. for this car accident. And they asked me about my childhood. And I was just crying uncontrollably, and I would just, out of nowhere, I would be fine. And then, like, it would be something so tiny, and I would feel like I was inconsolable. Like I could not regulate my emotions. They were so unpredictable, and I couldn't figure it out. And I got in this car accident. They asked me about my childhood, and I told them I didn't really have any memories of my childhood. They're like, well, what do you mean you don't have any memories of your childhood? You know, birthday parties and sleepovers and, you know, pillow forts and, you know, like family vacations and holidays. And I'm like, yeah, I don't really have that. That's not something that I don't really have that. And so I said, why do you ask? Why would you be talking about my childhood? I just got in a car accident, like after my son's Little League practice. And I said, well, the damage done to your frontal lobes is disproportionate to the severity of the accident. And I was like, well, what do you mean the damage to my frontal? You mean I have brain damage? They're like, well, I mean, that sounds a little, you know, extreme the way you're describing it, but yes, you have damage to your frontal lobe, and the damage that was done in the accident was to the vehicle was minimal. So I'm just curious as to like where all of this damage to your frontal lobes could have come from. And it kind of got me into this place of, doing my own research and reading the like peer-reviewed research papers and medical journals and, MTBIs and it was difficult to find information back then. Really, 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 really difficult to find information. And apparently I'm going to give you my Athena version, which is very colloquial. This is definitely not professional. I am not a medical professional. This is not medical advice. This is we are all peers here. We show up here and we hang out together because this is YouTube and that's what we're doing. But when we endure long-term family of origin or household dysfunction, long-term neglect, or even abuse, our brain is soaking in a toxic soup of adrenaline and cortisol. And it damages the frontal lobe. Hold on one second. I have like a little animal that's on my patio. Hold on. Sorry about that, guys. I had this little animal on my patio, and he was eating my plants. And I couldn't tell what he was, but he was eating my plants. And I don't want him eating my plants because they're beautiful. And I'm also a plant mom. So what I'm trying to say is, if we had long-term family of origin, household dysfunction, neglect, or even abuse during childhood, it can show up in the brain as damage to the frontal lobe. So, the good news is that in all of the studies that I did, I came across something called neuroplasticity. And we talk a lot about neuroplasticity on this channel because neuroplasticity gives us hope. It means that our brain has the ability to create new neurological pathways like every day, all day. And we're at our most neuroplastic state when we're younger, but it doesn't mean neuroplasticity goes away. Modern neuroscience, magnetic resonant imaging, functional MRIs, This proves in a brain scan that we can create new neurological pathways. And the way we do that, like if you picture your trauma, and everyone that is here on this YouTube channel understands what post-traumatic stress is. So a post-traumatic stress response from a trigger, let's picture the trigger, whatever triggered you. Let's say that trigger sends you down a path. It sends you down a road. And that road takes you to, it's the response that you had to the trigger, right? And the way that shows up, follow me here, stay with me here. The way that shows up for many of us is through emotional dysregulation, where we either can't control our emotions and they're coming out sideways, and we are crying when it's it's inappropriate, or we get disproportionately angry when something happens. And this is about regulating our emotions. This is about being able to identify and regulate our emotions and tolerate the distress that these emotions cause us. So what happens with neuroplasticity is that when we get triggered, the more we create room for our emotions, which is the theme this week, we're creating room for our emotions. So the more we create room for our emotions, the more emotionally intelligent we become, the more we expand our window of tolerance by doing all the things that we talk about here every single week. What that means is when we are triggered, because triggers are going to happen, there's going to be stimuli. Persons, places, and things are going to cause a post-traumatic stress response in us. And instead of going down that road that we've been going down for so many years, if you picture the road that a trigger sends us down, like picture a long driveway with 2 tire ruts. Those are the ruts where the car goes. We drive the car on those particular, like it's a big field or a long driveway, right? So what neuroplasticity, what modern neuroscience tells us about the brain and the facts about the brain means that when we get triggered, when we continually learn how to create room for our emotions, we become more emotionally intelligent. We learn how to regulate our emotions. We increase our distress tolerance skills. We expand our window of tolerance. We become more emotionally intelligent. We're doing all of these things that we have been talking about for years, almost 10 years now, right? Guess what? When a trigger comes, we go down a different road. And guess what happens to those old tire tracks? Grass grows over those old tire tracks, and those ruts disappear because we have a different response. We have a different response. The post-traumatic stress isn't going to win forever, okay? We may always have triggers, but our response to the triggers, as per modern neuroscience, as per neuroplasticity, means that we go down a different road. We create new neurological pathways. We create new roads. Okay? So that is what we are doing here. That's what we talk about every single week on this channel. When we show up for ourselves over and over and over and over again. Many of us have been coming here together, not only week after week, but month after month, year after year, for almost a decade. Okay? That is neuroplasticity. We are responding differently. The triggers are fewer and farther between, and the intensity is decreased. They're not as intense, and they're not as frequent. So I'm hoping that this is helpful for you and that this gives you a lot of hope. because our brain is magnificent. And as we sit with the body and we learn how to regulate our nervous system, that toxic flow of adrenaline and cortisol, I'm so grateful for modern neuroscience. So let me know if this is landing for you. Like, does this make sense to you? Like, this is why we do what we are doing. This is why we show up for one another, with one another, side by side, here, week after week, month after month, year after year. We are learning to expand our window of tolerance. We're learning to regulate our emotions. We're learning to sit with and tolerate the distress that some of our emotions can cause us. My computer did a funny thing and told me that it was going to end the stream, so I just want to make sure that you all are still here. Can you give me like an emoji or something just letting me know you can hear me? Oh, Lisa, I'm so sorry. Lisa says, I've been on my healing journey for 2 years. I feel so lost. You are not lost. Of course you're feeling lost. It's overwhelming. Healing is so overwhelming. Please just know that we see you, and we're all sitting beside you. There are 22 of us sitting together in a room right now, and I'm glancing at each of you with such compassion in my eyes and such empathy in my heart. Of course you're feeling overwhelmed. It's so common. Hello to you, Abigail. So glad you're here. Hello to you, Jennifer. So glad to see you. Yeah, that is so valid. This be me. This be me says totally, but I also feel like I'm doing a lot of dissociating and presenting just to get by. Absolutely. That is so common. Hello to you, Natalia. So glad to have you with us. We warmly welcome you. Warm welcome to anyone I didn't get a chance to say hi to. I'm glad you can still hear me. I don't know why it was saying the stream was going to end. It's so odd. So this is Dr. Ariel sharing here. She says, many individuals who grow up in abusive or neglective households have difficulty expressing emotions in a healthy way. Either they find themselves losing their temper, crying uncontrollably and feeling out of control, or they shut down and they feel cut off from their feelings. Both patterns are examples of emotional dysregulation that tend to disrupt the lives of individuals living with CPTSD. So within this discussion, we are going to talk about the origins of these types of symptoms, and we're going to learn skills to help us develop a healthy and balanced relationship with our difficult emotions. These tools are going to allow us to enrich our inner life and enhance our capacity for joy. So when we're emotionally regulated, we are going to feel grounded and calm, and we'll be able to compassionately accept that difficult feelings are an inevitable part of life. And this allows us to express a range of emotions without feeling overwhelmed or numb or reliant upon harmful behaviors. Emotional regulation permits us to make healthy decisions and advocate for our needs and skillfully communicate with others. So in contrast, emotional dysregulation refers to us having strong reactions like uncontrollable sadness, rage, fear, all of the things that disrupt our ability to focus at work or parent our children or maintain loving relationships. So we might have a fear of abandonment, or we might feel triggered by someone else's behavior, Or we might feel distressed when someone we care about is disappointed with us. Emotional dysregulation often leads to behaviors that we will later regret. For example, we might take out our anger on another person, or we might feel the urge to hurt ourselves. These behaviors tend to increase to a downward spiral in which we feel consumed by self-hatred, or we start to think about suicide as the only way out of our pain. Remember what Pete Walker says, you guys, the one who wrote Complex PTSD, From Surviving to Thriving. Self-harm and suicidality are trauma responses. They are the flee trauma response, the fight or flee trauma response. Okay? So, emotional dysregulation is common among survivors of complex trauma, particularly childhood trauma. And this is because we learn how to regulate our emotions during childhood. So children require healthy, caring, and attentive adults to help them develop their social and emotional intelligence. So it's the job of a parent to help their children feel safe enough to express uncontrollable feelings. So when children feel supported, they learn that stressful moments are only temporary and that they can resolve into positive experiences of empowerment or deepened connections in relationships. However, when parents are emotionally overwhelmed, they fail to help their children develop a healthy emotional landscape. So within this unsafe territory, children become explosive or cut off from their feelings. In some cases, children become hyper-aware of their parents' distress, or they are compelled to take care of their parents' emotional needs. So these patterns that we learn in childhood can come out in our adulthood as a tendency to cry uncontrollably or get angry really easily or feel super lethargic and dull or even be over-attuned to the feelings of others. These patterns of emotional dysregulation indicate that we are outside of our window of tolerance, a term coined by Dr. Dan Siegel to describe the range of stress that a person can manage without becoming overwhelmed. So when we are inside this optimal zone, we are able to skillfully attend to upsetting emotions and distressing physical sensations inside our window of tolerance. We're able to handle a certain amount of stress and return to a sense of safety. However, when we are outside of our window of tolerance, we might feel big emotions like fear, irritability, restlessness, anger, or excessive crying. And these feelings mean that our sympathetic nervous system has kicked in. In contrast, emotions that are low arousal emotions mean that we're feeling a parasympathetic system response. So perhaps we're feeling fatigued or lethargic or helpless or emotionally dull or numb or depressed. And often those with CPTSD alternate between these highs and lows, or as Pete Walker calls it, we toggle back and forth between the two. So patterns of dysregulation learned in childhood often continue into adulthood, and we might notice a tendency toward fight, flight, freeze, fawn, or a lesser known trauma response called faint. So let's take a closer look. So the fight response could show up in the body as being critical of ourselves or being angry or full of rage. We might have a strong need to feel in control. And if we relate to this pattern, we might need to work on our anger in therapy, which can provide a healthy outlet for this emotion, rather than taking this feeling out on ourselves or others. So in the body, we have this energy that happens when we get angry. And we can utilize in a healthy way this anger, the energy of anger, to set boundaries, to feel empowered, or to protect others who are being mistreated. So if you identify with the flight, that was the fight response. So this is the flight response. So fight, flight, freeze, fawn, and then we'll talk about faint. So this is flight. So if you identify with the flight response, you might notice a tendency to startle easily, or you might feel hypervigilant to your surroundings, like feeling like you're on guard. You might feel flighty or caught up in your head, or have racing thoughts, or feel disconnected from your body. You may be fleeing from reminders of your trauma. And in this case, we may need to focus on slowing down and connecting to the body and cultivating mindfulness of the here and now. So if you identify with the freeze response, this is what happens when we become absolutely still and we are in the freeze response. Might feel frozen, like we can't move our body. Just like an animal releases stress by shaking, moving, or breathing deeply, it often will help us to explore healing movement to release us from a freeze response. So, if you identify with the fawn trauma response, as so many of us on this channel do, especially the freeze-fawn loop, that codependency sort of a feel, where we start honing in on other people's emotions and seeking approval and acceptance outside of ourselves. So let's listen to what Dr. Ariel has to say about the fawn trauma response. She says, when in childhood, if in childhood we learn to cope by taking care of our parents' emotional needs, excuse me, then we are relying on another defense structure termed the fawn response by Pete Walker. The fawn trauma response involves trying to appease or please a person who is a source of threat. So the goal is to prevent an attack by caring for the emotional or physical needs of the abuser. So this submissive response often results in a pathological attachment to our abuser, which we'll talk more about in a few weeks. So in adulthood, if we identify with the fawn trauma response, and if we haven't worked on it in therapy, this could lead to patterns of codependency, where we seek our safety and approval outside of ourselves. And we could even lean towards sacrificing our own needs for the sake of maintaining our relationship. So if we struggle with the fawn trauma response, it will be super important for us to focus on developing our boundaries and improving our own sense of self-worth. Okay? So the last trauma response that we are going to talk about tonight, before we go into widening our window of tolerance, is the faint trauma response, which we don't talk a lot about. So the faint trauma response happens when our bodies decide that we're under threat and that we need to conserve all of our energy in order to survive. So with this trauma response, we might feel disconnected, dissociative, numb, or have the urge to withdraw from others. Or we might even experience nausea, dizziness, or difficulty with our vision. So these symptoms indicate that we are relying upon a primitive defense system that kicks in when it senses that death may be unavoidable. So for us as adults who are healing CPTSD, for us to heal from a faint trauma response, it is going to be very wise for us to slowly reorient our attention toward our five senses. For example, we can take a moment and look around our space, pay attention to any cues that will help us to feel relaxed and calm. We might explore how it feels to connect with another person with whom we feel safe. And it's really important for us to not shame the crap out of ourselves if we are, this is me talking, not Dr. Ariel. So like, it's important that we don't shame the crap out of ourselves if we are identifying with any of these trauma responses, okay? Because they're trauma responses. It's not like we're choosing, like, oh, I'm gonna get super disproportionately angry with this person. Like, that's gonna be fun. Or I'm gonna freeze and not be able to talk during the company meeting and feel super, just, incompetent as a result, right? So it's not something where we are choosing this trauma response. Like, we don't choose our trauma response. It just is the response to trauma. So you're responding in a normal way to abnormal circumstances. Okay? So a warm welcome to you, Mark. I don't think I got a chance to warmly welcome you earlier. Mark says, I usually defer to the other person knows better, and I'm somehow communicating wrong with boundaries. Ooh, I do the same thing. That's part of my own trauma response as well. So yeah. Yes, the maladaptive coping strategies do cause more anxiety and suffering. Yeah. But we're showing up here with one another, and we're learning better ways, and we're creating new neurological pathways, and I think it's all about repetition, right? Even if we can just do something just one time and celebrate that. It's super important to celebrate the small wins. So Dr. Ariel is going to talk to us now here, right before our healing strategy. She's going to explain what it is to widen our window of tolerance. So initially, our trauma recovery focuses on building our capacity to feel resourceful and regulated. In other words, we learn how to stay within our window of tolerance. But once we feel better regulated, our trauma recovery will help us to expand our capacity to handle a wider range of emotional distress. And this is going to assist us in widening our window of tolerance. So in DBT, dialectical behavior therapy, this process is called increasing your distress tolerance. So you can increase your window of tolerance, as coined by Dr. Dan Siegel, by compassionately, this is the how-to, don't miss this, compassionately pay attention to uncomfortable emotions and bodily sensations, while also recognizing that these feelings do not require knee-jerk reactivity. So what this might look like, remember this week's theme is creating room for our emotions. So let's say we have some uncomfortable emotions and bodily sensations, and we're able to recognize these, right? So let's say we did respond with knee-jerk reactivity. The way that we widen our window of tolerance practically, like in my opinion, this is me talking, not Dr. Ariel, is we pause, and whenever we get an opportunity to, and we realize that we responded disproportionately, and we acknowledge that, gosh, that person might have acted that way on accident or because of something that's going on in their life, and I kind of bit their head off, and I was disproportionately angry towards them. Like, I'm realizing that that's what I did. And I'm realizing also that the way they were acting was a trigger for me, and I felt like I was 5 years old all over again. So of course I'm going to respond this way. Like, how could I have responded any other way? So it's important for us to just pause and witness ourselves with compassion, knowing that we've been through a lot and we're doing our very best to heal. Come here, sweet boy. It's okay. We'll go out in just a moment. Now, Maui is awake in case you all haven't heard him walking around. He's like, Mama, when are we going to go outside? It's okay, buddy. It's okay. He's deaf and he's blind and he's 13, so he can't hear me. But so it's important for us to acknowledge our knee-jerk reactivity. It's important for us to compassionately comfort ourselves in that, knowing that we're doing the best we can and that we're going to try to do better next time. And we're going to breathe our way through it, because how we were feeling felt like we were 5 years old all over again, perhaps. Okay? The more often we can respond with a compassionate witness and to fully acknowledge what we've been through and to just validate those uncomfortable emotions and feelings and just create space for them and hold them with compassion, and to have that empathy towards self, to really show up in a way we would love for a close friend to show up for us, right? This is going to help us. So now, maybe our body was letting us know that we need to make a change in our current circumstances. So maybe this is, this is someone we need to maybe create some boundaries with. Or instead of reacting impulsively in the future, we can sort of make a note of the way we responded to something, and we can learn positive coping strategies, knowing that we're intentionally thinking about choosing wiser behaviors, like setting that boundary that I was mentioning, or advocating for ourselves if someone is being disrespectful or unkind to us. Or if it's not a relationship that is healthy, we can mindfully end the unhealthy relationship. So this is an opportunity for us to advocate for ourselves with compassion. Okay? The imbalances of our autonomic nervous system have repercussions on our physical health. So when we've been outside of our window of tolerance for extended periods of time, like during childhood, then we are more likely to have problems with digestion, our immune system, cardiovascular health. But we can also access the wisdom of our body to help us to heal. So, for example, if we were not able to protect ourselves in a dangerous situation as a child, then we can slowly and mindfully reclaim our ability to release our pent-up energy. And in this way, we can support our health by connecting to gentle movements to help us resolve traumatic situations that may have been stuck in our body for many, many years. Okay? So, our compassionate healing strategy that Dr. Ariel is showing us this week is called Increasing Our Distress Tolerance. Okay? So an important goal of anyone's therapeutic journey who's been through complex trauma, repeated relational trauma, is to learn how to handle painful emotions skillfully. Why? Why is that an important goal of our individual trauma therapy if we have been through repeated relational trauma? Well, one of the reasons why it's super important for us to have a goal to learn how to handle painful emotions skillfully is because as long as we're alive on planet Earth, we are going to have emotions. We're going to have bodily sensations, right? These things are going to happen. So it's important for us to learn how to be with these difficult feelings, because no matter how hard we try, we cannot avoid the challenges that come with being human. So when we feel uncomfortable sensations or uncomfortable emotions, they can come with habitual thoughts. And remember, our thoughts are just thoughts. They're not reality. They're not necessarily truth. Okay? So if we have a bodily sensation, we have a feeling, we have an emotion, that is something that is valid, legitimate, and real. But sometimes those emotions, those feelings in the body, they come with this string or this strand of these runaway thoughts, like, make it go away. Ain't nobody got time for this. I can't handle this right now. And we give up, or we stop. Or it can lead to self-harm, right? And it can lead to passive or active suicidal ideation, emotional outbursts, the urge to use substances. We can be sucked into a place of doom scrolling or online gambling or disordered eating behaviors or substance abuse. I mean, you name it. Any way that we can possibly numb stuff or avoid. My drug of choice was busyness. I would go, go, go and do until I dropped, because then I could sleep. And then I would wake up and I would go, go, go and do, and then I would drop and I would sleep. But I wasn't dealing with my painful emotions. I wasn't dealing with my feelings. I didn't have any distress tolerance skills. I needed to widen my window of tolerance, right? So distress tolerance, tolerating the distress that painful emotions brings, is a mindfulness practice. That's just fancy for, we are going to pause and recognize the present moment. We're going to breathe through the moment. That's it. So when we started off our stream tonight together, and I read you the quote and we did our breath work together, that was a mindfulness practice. So Dr. Ariel is inviting us as a strategy to increase our distress tolerance, to create room for our emotions, so we can create a space where we can be in a seated meditation. Set a timer so we don't need to look at a clock. We can sit on the floor, on the couch, on our bed. We can even simply sit in a chair. Begin to observe the sensations and emotions that are in the body. And if we notice any uncomfortable feelings that are showing up for us, it'll be difficult at first, but just see if you can stay curious and present with whatever's coming up, and be curious about your experience rather than acting on any urge to push the sensation or the emotion away. The goal here is to sit with what's coming up for us in the moment for as long as possible without numbing, stuffing, or avoiding. Okay? And one of the most helpful things that I think Dr. Ariel has ever said to our entire community. Do you remember when we got to interview her for CPTSD Awareness Day? One of the biggest, most helpful pieces of information that she gave us, it's so simple, but she said it can be really helpful in the moment to just remind ourselves that all emotions are temporary. All the bodily sensations that are showing up for us are temporary. Every single one of them are temporary. Okay? So instead of judging our experience, we can try describing our sensory experience to ourselves. So for instance, we can check in with our body. We can notice our temperature. Am I feeling hot? Am I feeling cold? Am I having any areas of tension in my body? Where am I feeling tension? Is it between the shoulder blades? Is it in the neck? Is it in the shoulder and the arms? What about the hands? How do our hands feel? What about our breath? Is our breath shallow? What about our heartbeat? What does our heartbeat feel like right now? Is it racing? Does it feel normal? Just observe what happens if we can stay with our emotions, the feeling in the body, just a little bit longer. And just notice. Place a gentle hand on wherever you're feeling anything. Notice any subtle changes that occur. If we just continue to breathe and compassionately observe our experience. One option is we might notice that the distress begins to subside naturally. This is a natural consequence of our mindful, reflective awareness. Or we might see that we are able to turn toward the underlying emotions, the feelings. We're creating room. We might be able to turn toward them in a more conscious way, one that allows for an experience of resolution. Okay? So we all just work toward expanding our window of tolerance. We created room for our emotions together. So next week is week 2 on Dr. Ariel's 3-week series on recognizing and healing emotional dysregulation. And we're going to talk about engaging and empowering. We're going to do some gentle movement together next week. And then on week 3, we're going to talk about accessing our inner wisdom. So let's end our time together tonight with our Loving the Self affirmation written by Lisa A. Romano. But first, let's just take a really deep breath together, if that's okay. It's just an invitation. If you don't want to breathe with me, you don't have to. But we're going to inhale together in 3, 2, 1. Inhale. 3, 2, 1. Exhale. 3, 2, 1. Thank you. Lisa says, I know that every journey begins with a thought, a decision to take that journey. So today, I decide to think thoughts that remind me to stay committed to honoring my healing journey, the journey that will lead to my authentic self. And in spite of possibly having some not so pleasant moments along the way, a large part of my healing journey will be learning how to embrace the not so good with the really, really good. No more running away from my feelings. And that is how we are creating room for our emotions. That is how we are healing emotional dysregulation. That is how we are developing distress tolerance. I know we ran long tonight, but for me, it was worth it. Emily says, I've been trying not to call them maladaptive. They helped us stay safe as children, and maybe even as adults. There might be reasons to use them. Does that resonate with others? Absolutely, Emily. I think it's more of like a clinical term that I was using loosely, even though I was speaking colloquially for most of the evening. So maladaptive, like clinically speaking, it's definitely something we did that helped us survive, and it was appropriate for survival. But for us to actually live and not be in survival mode, numbing, stuffing, and avoiding don't work. So they don't work long term, but they definitely are appropriate for short term survival, for sure. So yes, that does resonate, absolutely. Yeah. Oh, I love hearing his little clicks too. Oh, I don't know who that is. That's definitely not Maui. He doesn't speak because he's deaf and blind. So he has never used his voice before. He simply clicks, and he snuggles, and he walks. Oh, Lisa, I am so glad you were able to join tonight too. Yeah. Thank you all for showing up. Thank you for being here tonight. Aw. Thank you for being here, Jeffrey Sherman. Thank you for being here, John Harvey. Thank you, Lisa and Kate and Emily and Mark and Sarah and Ninja Taco, Mandy J, Little J, Diane. Warm welcome. Thank you so much for being here. Who did I miss? Did I miss anyone? Lisa, Emily, Mark, this be me. Thank you for being here, this be me. I'm so glad you're here. Hello, Jocelyn. Thank you for being here. Thank you for being here, Natalia. Thank you for being here, Kate. John Harvey. Each of you. Anyone I didn't mention. It was an accidental oversight. Truly not intentional. Thank you for being here, AJ. Thank you all so much. I wish you peace and ease. Really grateful that we got to spend time together this week. Thank you so much for being here, Jennifer. Aw, you all are so wonderful. Thank you for being in my life and for allowing me to be in yours. I will be back here with you next Monday and every Monday, 7 p.m. Eastern, or I'll see you over in our community between now and then. Where did it go? I had my little link. There's a link to our community over in Circle. And for some reason, I don't know where the link went. Oh, here it is. Here's a link. This channel is sponsored by the Foundation for Post-Traumatic Healing and Complex Trauma Research. And just giving this video a thumbs up if it was helpful is amazing. And if you want to join our community, you absolutely can. We also have daily recovery support, 2 calls a day, every day, Monday through Friday. Trauma-informed yoga on the weekends, and healing book club. And then on Sundays, we have weekly creative group. We have daily text. We have a free weekly newsletter called Trauma-Informed Tuesdays. So much more. We have a Pride community support once a week. We also have trauma-informed partner support if you are a partner of a trauma survivor, someone who supports a trauma survivor. And in late 2024, we have a men's group starting up. And late 2024, we have a parental alienation group that will be starting up. And self-care retreats, like virtual retreats. So yeah, it's just an amazing joy that I get to do this work beside each of you. It's just such a gift. So just sending each of you so much love. I love you all so much. And I look forward to seeing you soon. Please be extra kind and patient and gentle with yourself because you're worth it. And I'll see you soon. Good night, everyone.